Hello. This is my presentation on 10 best practices in the ELL classroom by Anna Boasberg. The first best practice I want to talk about is comprehensible input. According to Teacher Vision, comprehensible input means that students should be able to understand the essence of what is being said or presented to them. It is important to increase the comprehensible input in order to challenge the students with difficult topics. It is important that we do not oversimplify the comprehension for the students. It's better for them to get harder work than to be dumbed down. Some examples of comprehensible input is to provide relevant context towards the students, connect learning to prior knowledge and experiences, also the use of visual aids and artifacts, and it is important to use as many authentic artifacts as possible. Okay, now I will talk about my second best practice, which is scaffolding understanding. Scaffolding understanding is providing the students with appropriate assistance in order for the students to be able to achieve with the usage of organizers. This is a great way to provide students with comprehensible input. The most beneficial scaffolding for English learners is visual scaffolding. This allows the students to get a visual representation of their learning. Some great examples of scaffolding understanding are using graphic organizers. There's a variety of graphic organizers. This also goes to the new form of notes called foldables. Using visual aids, allowing for peer reviews, and show and tells. The third best practice is purpose grouping. We all know that we prefer to work with a group that can benefit us and we can help the group also. Learners learn best when working together in a group. This is important because you can have different level students within the group within the same group as an advantage. This will also allow students to peer review each other, and it allows to provide students with a set routine. The way that you set up your groups could be in a different ways. You can have one group where you have a higher learner and a lower learner, or you can have another group where they're the same level. This will allow students to work together, fix their own mistakes, and learn to be responsible for each other. Some examples of purpose grouping is to be able to pair students with higher level English learners, pairing students with the same level students to get adequate practice, peer reviewing, and heterogeneous groups. Best practice number 4 is teaching for speaking. Fundamental to teach students to be able to comprehend in order to speak in the target language. This also applies to Krasner's input hypothesis, where students are being provided with sufficient reading and listening practice for them to feel comfortable when it comes to speaking the language. The language that learners are exposed to should be just far enough beyond their current competence that they can understand most of it, but still be challenged to make progress. This means that the readings and listenings we are using in the classroom make them a higher level than what the students are actually at. This can also apply to the basic interpersonal communicative skills and the cognitive academic language proficiency. We all know that when students start learning a language, they are in that basic interpersonal communicative skills for a year or two. Then they're able to get into the cognitive academic language proficiency. Also, if they are learning to speak, they are able to learn the mechanics, the functions, and the cultural roles of that language. Some great examples that we can incorporate into our classroom when teaching for speaking is to incorporate pop culture and media into the classroom. Know what our students like and incorporate that. Also discussing current events. Maybe having them research article, a new current event, and then having them discuss it within their groups. Show and tell, explaining why the reasons why they did something, and also students love to present on their culture. This also allows for others to learn about a variety of cultures. Best practice number 5 is social collaboration. As human beings, we all love to socialize, and this is important, especially in the classroom. It is important to allow the students to work with their peers while helping them work on their listening and speaking. It is also important that they interact with their peers to communicate. Teachers should be able to provide sufficient practice for learners to interact within the classroom. If students are collaborating, they will be able to express their thoughts and feelings with their peers. And social collaboration also provides learners with input and output opportunities, which means students also need to understand the message of communication. Some examples of social collaboration are allowing students to work on portfolios of all their work. Also working on presentations together as in partners. Discuss the importance of culture. Include pop culture and media and things that students can relate to. And then the grouping of students within different cultures. This is all important for social collaboration. Best practice number 6 is to be able to set objectives. As a teacher, it is important that we provide objectives because it gives the students a clear mind of what to expect for the day. In my classroom, I write the objectives on the board. In the beginning of the class, a student is responsible for reading the objective of the day, and then all students are responsible for writing the objectives on their bell ringer sheet. This is important because students like to be made aware of what is happening in the class. It can also help the teacher and the students stay on target. And especially in the English language learning classroom, it allows the students to have a vision for what the day is going to consist of. Also, at the end of the day, it is also important to allow for reflection at the end of the day based on these objectives that the teacher has set for the classroom. Some examples of setting objectives is to make sure that the teacher writes the objectives on the classroom board daily. Then she can have the students write out objectives with the bell warm-up. Also, she can assign a student to be the objective reader for the week. Like that, the students are seeing the objectives 3 times during a day. So they're listening to them, they're reading them themselves, and they're writing them. Best practice number 7 is family engagement. I believe that families are a key role to the education a student receives. Families are the key to success with many students. This should not just be a one-time engagement. This is a year-long engagement. You should see the families as your partners in the classroom. If you keep the parents informed and parents are involved, students tend to have better attendance, higher test scores, and get less involved with drugs. Also, it seems that things in the classroom have an easier flow when parents are welcome. Some examples of how to have family engagement in your classroom is by initiating contact from the beginning of the school year. Emails, phone calls, just letting parents know of your expectations in the classroom and what students will be doing. Also, make sure to maintain communication with parents throughout the year. Not just in the beginning of the year, throughout the year, if there's specific projects they're going to be doing. Maybe invite them to specific presentations. A good idea is maybe to send a monthly parent newsletter. This will keep parents informed of what is happening within that month and ways they can help within the classroom. Also, invite them to open house and inviting them to come into your classroom or volunteer. Also, a good way to invite parents would be to share their experiences and their culture. Best practice number 8 is classroom environment. I believe that teachers should work extremely hard to create a positive learning environment for their classroom. Positive learning environments are encouraging, supportive, motivating, and give students confidence. It is important that students feel supported and comfortable in order to be able to make mistakes without being ridiculed. A negative learning environment can make students shut down and give up in their learning. For many students, it will also be a culture shock, the learning. So it is important that the teacher has been able to create a positive learning environment from the beginning of the school year and maintain that positive learning environment throughout the school. Okay? Some examples of how to maintain a positive learning environment is to learn the students' names, also pair them up with a peer that they feel comfortable with, invite their culture into the classroom, post objectives or daily schedules. This is also important because students love to have routines. Involve all students in cooperative learning. And the tips for welcoming learners is a video on YouTube that you can watch. Also, in a positive learning environment, students are cheering on each other and motivating each other to go above and beyond their expectations. Best practice number 9 is vocabulary practice. Daily in our classrooms, we have to deal with vocabulary, and sometimes it is really hard to find interactive ways to practice this vocabulary. Vocabulary acquisition is just as important as the acquisition of grammar. It is the heart of communication. It is important that our students understand what these vocabulary words mean and how to use them in context. People would not be able to communicate if we did not have a bank of vocabulary words. We would not know what words to use. Also, it is important to incorporate technology into the process of learning a new vocabulary. This can also provide ideas where students are able to create their own personal dictionaries. Some examples of way that technology can be used to apply vocabulary context is through Quizlet, Cram, Kahoot, and Socrative. Also, allowing students to focus on vocabulary specific to them. Maybe every week you allow students to choose 5 vocabulary words that they specifically want to learn. Like that, they are able to use these 5 words into their personal dictionaries, and every personal dictionary would be different for every student. Also, the use of graphic organizers and flyers, where they're able to put the words, synonyms, pictures, use the word in a sentence, and find the definition of that word. Lastly, the 10th best practice is to incorporate technology. Technology is around us. Everywhere we look, we are always on our phones, on our computers, or any other form of technology. Technology has been able to reshape our curriculum, promote cooperating teamwork. This will also allow to provide students with 21st century skills that they will need. Every job, they will need to learn how to use technology. Now we have classrooms where it's one-on-one or there's devices within the classroom. That's why it's important as an educator to use online games or for educational purposes. This will definitely increase student motivation and participation. As educators, sometimes it is hard for us to remember that technology is everywhere and is very accessible. We have 2-year-olds knowing how to use iPads, and I feel that we need to use this to our advantage. Not only to the remembering portion of this triangle that we can see here, but having our students creating using technology. Some great examples of incorporating technology into the classroom is using different types of web quests, allowing students to do investigations on specific topics, finding articles that they are interested in reading, and analyzing those articles. Quizlet is great for vocabulary practice. Kahoot can be a great game review. Nearpod is awesome for presentations. Socrative can be used as a game review. In our high school, we use Socrative to take quizzes and tests. There's thousands and thousands of YouTube videos that can be incorporated into the classrooms. Different forms of presentations, moving on from PowerPoint to maybe Prezi and explain everything, which is what I'm using for my presentation. also video communication and Skyping. You're able to Skype with different schools from different areas. You don't even have to be in the same city. So that is great. And allowing students to blog and discuss online within each other and within their community. I have provided you with 10 best practices to incorporate it into your classroom. I hope that you have learned some great best practices and great examples of ways that you can incorporate all of these 10 amazing best practices I have provided with you. I believe that the most important one is to incorporate technology right now and to create a positive learning environment in your classroom. Technology, like I mentioned, technology is everywhere, and we have to learn how to use it and how to incorporate it into our classrooms. And if sometimes we don't know something, I'm sure we are able to ask our students because they know a lot, probably more than we do. The positive learning environment is just important and beneficial for the teacher and the students. It goes smoothly, the students are more encouraged and motivated to learn. I hope that you were able to take at least some best practices that you will be able to incorporate it into your classroom. Have a great day.